Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably know that I am in the middle of a series of videos in which I am exploring the esoteric associations with the Tarot. And when I say esoteric, I mean the Kabbalistic and the astrological associations. And I've titled this series, Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata, with the subtitle of Peeling Back the Symbolic Palimpsest. Yes, and if you want to know what that all means and you want to know why I've started this series and the purpose of the series and the background of it, I have an introduction video, which I highly recommend you begin with. And so I'll put a card up here for you to click on and hop on over and watch that first, because that explains all the background to these videos that I am creating here. And actually, I suggest watching those videos in order and re-watching them with a notebook to take notes, just in case you are interested in perhaps applying the things that I am discovering for myself, for yourself. So all of those things could be helpful for you. In the last video, we looked at the associations for for justice to temperance, right? In the first video of this Major Arcana series, which started with video 2, I gave you the criteria that I'm using to create these associations, to follow the links between card and Hebrew letter and astrology and element. So if you haven't seen that video, I recommend going back and watching that one as well. But this video, we're focusing on the third set of 7 plus 1, which means we're going to be looking at the devil to the world, with the Fool placed between the Judgment card and the World card. And don't freak out. Before you freak out, before you say, what the heck is he doing? Watch the videos that came up to this one, and also remember a couple of things. Yeah? The Fool was originally an unnumbered card. It was the numberless trump card. Yes? And it has no specific placement in the order of the trumps, in the order of the Major Arcana. And the Golden Dawn was the one who, in modern times, placed the 0 on the Fool and placed the Fool before the Magician card. And I understand that. I understand the urge to do that and to follow that, because in many ways that can make sense. Yes, and I followed that myself for decades. I was attached to making the Fool the card before the Magician, and especially for making the Fool the card between the World and the Magician. Now my understanding has shifted. I can't say that I've come to a final conclusion or a final decision on this matter, but I'm seeing a new potential for the Fool in in placing and inserting the Fool where I am inserting the Fool. And yet, I do see that there is some potential, reasons to say that I might be doing something not kosher. Yeah, for example, on the one hand, I'm eschewing the Golden Dawn's decision of placing the Fool before the Magician, and their decision of placing the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet not on the magician, but on the Fool. So I'm eschewing their renumbering, as if you will, of the major arcana. But on the other hand, what am I doing? I am inserting the Fool in a place that I think fits best, right? Now, of course, my insertion does not change the numerical association of the numbers of the entire series. We're just looking at the last 3 cards, right? I'm just placing it before the last card. I'm placing it in the penultimate position. So it only changes the associations of one of the cards, right? But on the other hand, there are other precedences for doing that, earlier precedents before the Golden Dawn. Also, if we think about the way that Hebrew letters work as numbers, the first letter, Aleph, to the 9th letter, actually the 10th letter, all work as one-to-one associations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then at the 11th number to the okay, I've written it down. Let me look at it. So the next 9 numbers, okay, let's just put it this way. The next 9 numbers are the 10s. Yes? So we go 20s, 30s, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Yes, for the next 9 letters. And then the last 3 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are Resh, Shin, and Tov, and they stand in for the numbers 200, 300, and 400, respectively. So, what am I doing? I am placing the Fool. So, if we were to keep judgment and the world together, judgment would be 200, the world would be 300, and then if we placed the Fool at the end, which some esotericists do, that would be 400. So what am I doing? I'm just switching 300 and 400. There's not a direct number of the card to number of the letter as there is for the first 10 numbers and the first 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Does that make sense? So it's not as egregious a shifting, if you ask me. What do you think? Does that make sense? If it does not make sense, let me know in the comments below and I'll try explaining it again in maybe a chart fashion. Yeah? So I can understand if this still feels uncomfortable. If it does feel uncomfortable, try to sit with that discomfort and walk with me through this series. I still think it makes things a little more acceptable for me to place the Fool between judgment and the world. But watch how this works out and see if you agree for yourself. I welcome your input. I really do. If you have a different perspective, let me know. But there's something very interesting about that, and we'll get to the specifics of that near the end of the video when we actually dive into the specific associations with those specific cards. But today we're starting with the Devil, and there's something really interesting. I found a new appreciation for the series of Devil to World, with the way that these new, for me, esoteric associations have revealed themselves. There's a very interesting satisfaction that I hope you will appreciate as we go through this series. There's a liberation of spirit in this series. Tell me if you see it as we go through. So, the first card, here, the Devil. I'm looking at my devils here, you're looking at them here. I'll have one One is from the Noble, which I think will be on this side, and the Smithwaite version will be on this side. The Noble that I'm using, it was published by Flournoy. There'll be a link in the description box below. The RWS deck I'm using was produced by Conrad Stain. It's called the C.S.Tarot, and there will be a link for that in the description box below. So the Devil. Fabulous card. Now, let me talk you through these associations. And ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, I hope you have settled in, because this is going to be a bit of a long video. Longer than usual, probably. The Devil is associated with, for me now, the Hebrew letter Samek, which kind of looks like a bit of a wonky circle. Yeah? And because it's associated with Samek, it is associated with Sagittarius. And yes, I know you're going to say, what the heck? It should be Capricorn or something else, right? But for me now, the Devil is Sagittarius. What does Sagittarius mean in a Hebrew astrological context? It means self-confidence. It means optimism. Yes, and hope. Yes, and spiritual resolve. And you might be thinking, for the Devil, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. If we flip it on its head, if the card is reversed, we have things like desire for adventure. We have irritability and misuse of energy, putting your energy in the wrong way. And you might be thinking, well, that kind of rings true for the Devil, but the rest of it might not, yeah? So Sagittarius for Hebrew astrology links to things like the rainbow and the divine covenant. Yeah? It's the sign of God's covenant and promise not to destroy the earth again after the flood. Remember the story of Noah and the ark and the rainbow of the promise? Well, that rainbow is symbolized with Sagittarius. It's the sign of hope and renewal, of God's mercy and of judgment. Yes? Now, the month that Sagittarius is associated with in the Hebrew calendar, it's the month of miracles, and it's called Kislev. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that poorly, but it's the month of miracles. It's the month of Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, right? When light triumphed over darkness, and yes, we're using that for the Devil. The power to overcome overwhelming odds through faith and divine intervention. Interesting, right? Feels like I'm talking about the exact opposite of the Devil. It's also the struggle of human nature, though. Yeah? Think of the centaur of Sagittarius, yeah? Part human, part animal. It's the internal struggle between one's higher spiritual self and the more animalistic, self-centered self, right? The horse. It's also the bow of Sagittarius, yeah? The keshet, which symbolizes the power of restriction or focus needed to aim one's life to a higher spiritual purpose. Aiming towards a higher spiritual purpose on the Devil. It's prophecy and divine truth as well. It's the power to prophesy and pursue deeper or spiritual truth. It's traditionally seen as a natural philosopher, seeker of truth, and communicator of knowledge. All of this is Sagittarian stuff in Hebrew astrology as well. Now, if we look at the Hebrew letter itself, just the letter Samek, we have things like, well, the direct symbolic meaning of Samek is support or a prop, propping things up. Yeah. Also a fish, which is interesting. It's leaning upon things, holding and being supported by things or supporting other things. However, the shape is the shape of the Ouroboros, right? The snake eating its own tail. So it's the endless cycle of life and completeness. So maybe the devil is seeking these things. It's protection and trust and divine support. Yes, that is all here now with the devil. Now, if we look at the rune that would be associated with this number 15, we have Argiz, which is interesting because Argiz is the rune for the horned god. Yes, so that kind of works nicely for the devil, right? The horned deity, which is the deity of protection, of openness, of happiness, and life force. Right? Kind of works well with Sagittarius, but you might be thinking, what the heck? The devil? Okay, so let's think about a couple of things. Yes, the devil traditionally was just the devil, right? When the card was created, it was the devil. Plain and simple. But when some of the esotericists came along, for example, Eliphas Levi, Eliphas Levi came along and created an image of Baphomet, which I will try to remember to put up here, maybe just covering my face with it for a moment. And that image very closely resembles a lot of tarot devil cards, right? But this is not Satan or the devil. This is a horned spirit, being. It is the symbolic union of the masculine male and feminine female. It has the alchemical significance of solve and coagula, which is dissolve and coagulation, or crystallization, or joining. Yes, to dissolve and join or crystallize. And also remember some other things. Remember, one of the names of the devil is Lucifer, the light bringer, the bringer of light. Yes? And there are some mystical teachings that Shekinah. Now, do you know Shekinah? Shekinah is the divine feminine. It is the creative force of the divine. In some traditions, it was the Shekinah which created the material universe. And in some traditions, it's the divine which also dwells in the world, and or the creative impulse of the divine in the world. Shekinah is also the indwelling light of the divine in matter. Now, remember, Lucifer, bearer of light. Shekinah, light in the world, light of the world, light emanating from within the world, the divine illuminating matter. Perhaps we can reimagine the devil card, especially as it follows alchemy of temperance, as the union of duality in matter, as the divine spark dwelling within matter and in form when the card is upright. So we can think of the card as it's the beginning of this sequence, as the divine light of each of us still identifying with its physical form. It's Shekinah, still immersed in the dream of matter. Does that make sense? So what does that do to the tower, which will come next when it follows this idea of the divine spirit enmeshed and swimming in the dream of material form? What can we learn? What we can lean in from that. And what if we could lean into the trapped and addicted aspects of spirit being addicted to form when the card is reversed. Can those seem like possibilities for you? Imagine this. So temperance is the art card, right? It's the alchemy card for us, maybe now. This is where the two things become one. They join, they unify. And then the devil, part of the alchemy of Tarot, is now the dissolution. They dissolve into each other and then they crystallize into the new form, alchemically speaking. But now we're also looking at another sequence of 7 or 8, or now 8 cards, where we begin with spirit enmeshed in matter. And so what is the journey of spirit now in these 8 cards? Keep those things in your head as we move into the Tower. Now for me, the Tower is associated with the Hebrew letter Ayin, which looks kind of like a Y. Kind of. It's in the Sepher Yetzirah, associated with the sign, the astrological sign of Capricorn. So here's where Capricorn is landing for us now. And what does Capricorn mean for Hebrew astrology? It is contemplation. It's deep understanding. I know those don't seem like very Capricornian things to European astrologers, right? It's the spiritual rectification. Interesting, right? So we're moving into spiritual rectification from spirit immersed in the dream of matter. Yes? Now, in negative, what are negative traits of Capricorn? It's depression, it's seclusion, it's materialism, and anger. Yeah? Think of the ram pissed off. Yeah? Now, other things associated with Capricorn for Hebrew astrology are atonement and sacrifice. Yeah? One goat was offered as a sacrifice to the divine, and the other was offered as a scapegoat. Yeah, all of the sins of the town, of the village, of the people were placed on this one goat, and the goat was sent out into the wilderness, and the sins were taken away with the goat. Yeah, Capricorn. It's the month of Tevet, which means that it's the month of spiritual tools to navigate times of difficulty, hardship, and cleansing that is called for at those times. Here's something that does ring true for European astrologers. It's also the month of ambition and ascent. Yeah, those seem very Capricornian, don't they? The spiritual ambition to ascend to higher levels of consciousness, though, and to connect with the divine, and overcoming physical limitations and obstacles. Yeah? Now the duality, all of the Hebrew signs, all of the Hebrew astrological signs have duality enmeshed in them. Yes? Something that that threw me at first is, so this one's duality too? This one's duality? Well, the duality of this one is the duality of earth and water, of two elements. Why? Think of the Capricorn image. We've got the goat front and the fish butt, right? It's like Sagittarius, we've got the human body and the horse body. Here we've got a goat body and a fish body. So the duality is the earth of the goat and the water of the fish. So it's the balance between the grounded, ambitious, earthly nature, the goat, and the deep, emotional, spiritual waters of the subconscious fish part. Yeah? The work is to elevate the physical to the spiritual. And so the goat climbing up the mountain to the divine. It's also service and humility. The need to cut off negative traits and humble oneself in service to God, much like the sacrificial goat. Now, Ayin as a letter is a symbol for the eye. And if you think of the the tower card for the Harris Crowley deck, do you remember that eye up at the top of the card? That when I see that eye, I think of this letter Ayin. It's springing to see. It's understanding. It's obeying. It's the light of God. And when we see the lightning coming in to crack open the tower, now think of that as the light of God. It's insight and perception. It's also inner vision. Now, so, remember, we got the devil, right? The devil, the light immersed in matter. Now, what if the tower is that cracking open? Right? It's the divine light coming in and cracking open the shell of material constriction. So our inner vision is brightened. Our inner vision, the eye is opened. The ayin, yeah? And the rune that would be associated here is Sewillow, which kind of looks like an S shaped like a lightning bolt, yeah? It's the rune for the sun, interestingly. It's an elemental power and victory. It's also success. It's honor. It is knowledge, will, and again, victory. So the victory over matter, perhaps. The victory of the light of the divine sun cracking in. It really reframes the idea of the tower, doesn't it? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry. I'm in a place where the mouth gets very dry, so I'm going to hydrate just a moment. Okay. So this really is interesting to me, and it's an exciting way to view the tower. Do you see how this follows naturally from our reconstructed devil card? So now we get to the star. Beautiful cards here. Now guess who the star is now? Yeah? Well, the star is for now associated with the Hebrew letter Peh, which kind of looks like a backwards P. And because of that, with the version of the Sepher Yetzirah that I am using, this, I forgot the name of it, the Saadian, it's in video number 1 and 2 of this series. And it slipped my mind right now. But the version that I'm using, it's not the Graa, it's the one that I believe is before. Yes? According to that association, we have the Hebrew letter Peh associated with the planet Venus. Venus. Also, the morning star. Right? Okay, that tickles me, personally. So, we can think of Venus as the morning star, as the star of this beautiful, voluptuous, lovely lady, not hiding anything, right? Of beauty, of sensual pleasures, of interstellar feminine power, right? Now, Venus is also associated with the Sephirah Netzach, and Netzach is the Sephirah of glory. Wow, how wonderful is that for the star card? And remember, Venus is domiciled in Taurus, which is now connecting the star card to the lover's card. Venus, love, that's kind of cool. And Venus is also domiciled in Libra, which now connects her to the Hanged Man, which I like, because I associate myself with the Hanged Man for reasons I described in the last video. So what is Venus? What is the star for us now? Its brightness, its radiance, and feminine attributes. Now, all of those lovely, powerful, feminine attributes of Venus, It's deep feelings and sentiment as well. It's beauty. It's favor. It's charming speech. It's wealth and prosperity or passion or promiscuity. That could be positive or negative. And again, it's the morning star. It's Lucifer. It's the morning star revealed. Yes? Re-revealed. Now, Peh, as a Hebrew letter, symbolizes the mouth for speech. So now, the star is a speaker. Yes? It's the power of words. It is expression. So the divine spark, now perhaps liberated from the material, at least somewhat, or at least revealed somewhat, is able to express, right? The rune is Tiwaz, which kind of looks like an arrow. And it stands for another god, the great god Tyr. Tyr was the one who sacrificed his hand to a monstrous wolf so the other gods could escape and survive. The great god Tyr is the god of justice, of authority, of self-sacrifice and success. It's not just sacrificing yourself, but sacrifice for success. And that kind of follows and flows from that tower of cracking open to the success through self-sacrifice of the star. Yeah? Okay, so now let's get to the moon. The moon. Okay, so the moon card. Lovely, lovely moon card. And in both of these cards, you see the dogs, you see the moon, you see the crayfish, the lobster, the crab, whatever you want to call it, the crustacean. And for us now, well, for me now, the moon is associated with the Hebrew letter of Tzadi, which kind of looks a little bit like one of the other letters we've had, but it's also like a Y or a V with a tail. I'm still having a little trouble distinguishing between some Hebrew letters, just seeing the figure itself. Yeah, so full disclosure. But this is associated with Tzadeh, which means it's associated with the astrological sign of Aquarius. And now you're probably thinking, Aquarius for the moon? Let's look at this, okay? So Aquarius. Positive aspects in Hebrew astrology are originality, inquisitiveness, creativity, and also righteousness. It's a little bit similar in some aspects to the European astrological ideas, right? A little bit. Originality, right? Negative traits are rashness and susceptibility. It's also susceptibility to negative influences. So that's a little bit like the negative aspects of the moon that a lot of our card readers see, yes? Other aspects of Aquarius for Hebrew astrology are the pouring forth of wisdom, especially from the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, right? Water symbolizes wisdom, mercy, and the Torah. And when we think of Aquarius, we think of the guy the person holding the jug, pouring forth the water, the wisdom of the water, the wisdom of mercy, the wisdom of the Torah. And its divine laws and its teachings. Pouring, there's an unlimited flow here. Its transmission of this knowledge is to the world without end. Through the moon. Yeah? The Hebrew month for Aquarius is Shevat, and it's the month of abundance of rain. So, when we see the moon card, we kind kind of see that rain coming down, right? Maybe. And it's associated with blessings. This is the rain of blessing coming down on these animals. It's the holiday of Tu B'Shavat, the New Year for trees. Interesting. It's growth and it's renewal, and it's the fruits of the land. After the divine spark has been liberated, we might have some of this renewal here with the moon, a continuance of renewal, spread out, pouring forth eternally. It's the age of revelation and redemption. It's profound revelation and ultimate redemption. Yeah? And the sign's association with the air element is interesting. It signifies intellect and revolutionary ideas, which we get here in Hebrew astrology as well. And a unified perception of the world that precedes a perfected era of peace and freedom from evil. Yeah, it's the unification before the ultimate reestablishment of paradise. It's that penultimate step, which is interesting and nice for the moon card, I think, because the next card is the sun. Also, humility and receptivity is part of Aquarius for Hebrew astrology. Divine wisdom and abundance flow toward those with humility and a selfless personality. Yeah? Making them worthy vessels. The vessel bearer, making them worthy vessels to receive God's light. As the moon receives the light of the sun, right? The moon receives the light of the sun, so Aquarius is prepared to receive God's light. I think that's kind of cool, yeah? And then we're able to therefore reflect it on the people around us. Now, tzadeh, the Hebrew letter, is the symbol for javelins, fish hooks, and the righteous one as well. Yeah? It's the letter for righteousness, for humility, justice, and humility before God. Now, the rune that would be associated with it would be Barkana, which looks like a bee, and it's the rune of new beginnings, of fertility. Think of the cycles of the moon and fertility, right? Human fertility, but also fertility of the land. Regeneration, a good placement for that here in the moon, right? And birth. Also maybe a love affair, but okay, the romance of the moon, maybe that's part of it too. So we've got some very interesting, more positive aspects of the lunar image here than a lot of us tend to give to the moon card, right? How do you usually read the moon? Do you read it as fear, anxiety, that kind of thing? Or do you see more positive aspects of the moon? If you are looking for positive aspects for the moon, we just found a whole lot of them. Right? Okay, now we're moving into the sun. Here comes the sun. Do-do-do-do. So the sun is now associated with the Hebrew letter Kof. And that is another P-like shape, only an English P letter facing P. And the letter Kof, according to the Sepher Yetzirah, is associated with the sign of Pisces. You might be thinking, the sun and Pisces? What the frig? Well, okay, let's look. So what does Pisces mean for Hebrew astrology? It is flexibility. It is adaptability and profound change and sanctity. So instead of a rigid father figure, sun god, we've got a flexible, adaptable, yet still sanctified idea attached to it. Now in reversed, what do we get? We have, for a reversed card, ambivalence, deceit, and escapism. That kind of works for the sun reversed, don't you think? Pisces is also fruitfulness and multiplication. Yeah, multiply like fish, says the Bible. Yes. And the Pisces is perhaps the most fertile sign of the zodiac. Fertility and the sun, that rings fairly true for me. But it's also the hidden life. Yeah, it's the hidden internal life of faith. It's the subconscious. Now you might be thinking, wait a second, the subconscious, that should be the moon. But let's keep going here. And the mysterious ways in which God works in the world. Yeah, it also represents the connection to Olam Haba, which is the world to come in my broken Hebrew. It's the Messianic age, a higher intuitive consciousness with the sun. Now, the sun connected to a Messianic age, to Olam Haba, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to me. It's the month of Adar, which means that it's the happiest month of the year and contains the holiday of Purim. I did a Purim play when I was in elementary school, just in case you were wondering. The joy, and I'm not Jewish, no, but I went to the Jewish Community Center for theater club activities. It was kind of fun. So it was the joy of Purim that stems from the hidden nature of the miracle, where God's hand was present even when not explicitly revealed. So the presence of God, even though not clearly visible. The hidden light of God's providence. Now, where's the duality in this one? It's duality and salvation, which is the ability to balance both realms. Yeah, the spiritual and the material. Think of those two fish, the spiritual fish and the material fish, being able to balance both realms. It's also associated with the time of salvation and divine mercy, which is a nice thing as the card which comes right before the judgment card, right? So, what is Kof? Kof in Hebrew is the symbol of the monkey, the back of the head as well. It's associated with the sun as well. Interesting, right? The Hebrew letter is associated with the sun. But it's also mimicking human traits. Yeah, it's that when monkeys try to behave like humans, or when perhaps we try to behave like the divine, where it's what is that word that's trying to come out, but it just isn't. It's a less than imitation, right? It's also holiness versus imitation, yeah? Holiness of the pure versus the imitation of holiness. It's the line between sacred and profane as well, Kof. So, here is the sun being that border. Now, the rune that would be associated with it is Ihwaz, which kind of looks like an M. And it's the rune for the horse, riding, progress. Now, you might be thinking, horse, oh, that's the Rider-Waite-Smith version, right? It's loyalty and harmony. It's cooperation and partnership. And also marriage. Yeah? So, harmony, cooperation, partnership. We can think of the... let's see, where am I going to put the Smith? Well, anyways, in the Tarot de Marseille version, you can see that pairing, the cooperation, the partnership of the sun, right? In the Smith-Waite version, you can see the horse. That's kind of nice. Okay, so let's keep going. There's an announcement going on outside. I hope it doesn't interfere with your ability to hear me. But here we go with Judgment. Ta-da, Judgment. Very similar cards, right? Judgment is now associated with the Hebrew letter Resh, which kind of looks like just a bent angle, yeah? And because we're associating it with Resh, and I am using the Said version of the Sepher Yetzirah, Resh is now associated with Mercury, the planet Mercury. Okay? Now think of that angel as Mercury, maybe. That will help. Yeah? And what is Mercury for Hebrew astrology? It is wisdom. It's the transfer of wisdom and intellect. And it's communication. Yeah, think of that horn in the card. And it's expertise. It's also often viewed as a scribe, yeah, somebody who dictates, who writes stuff down, due to its proximity to and rapid movement around the sun. It's the scribe planet, right? It's the messenger planet. It's the one who writes stuff down for the divine. It's also the planet of, guess what? Enlightenment and expertise. Enlightenment, yeah? Think of the divine calling us awake, right? And also analysis, which is interesting. Now, Mercury, placed on the tree of life, is associated with the Sephirah of Hod. Hod, for me, is, instead of glory, it is acceptance. It is accepting things as they are. Right? Netzach is victory. Hod is the acceptance of any problems as they are and the ability to get around those problems like water. So instead of fighting them like Netzach might do and be conquering them, this is the ability to be open to them and flow around them and find the natural path forward. Now, Mercury is also domiciled in where? Mercury is domiciled in Gemini, which would be the chariot that links this card to the chariot, and it's domiciled in Virgo, which connects this card to the Wheel of Fortune now. So we've got Judgment connecting to the chariot, the willpower to move forward like that prince in the chariot. Here we have the angel, Mercury, calling forth. And it's connected to the cycles of the Wheel of Fortune and those Virgo qualities, which is interesting. Now, Resh, as a Hebrew letter, is the symbol for the head. Not the back of the head like Kof, but the head itself. It's the beginning of a new cycle. It's the number 200, which I mentioned earlier, and it points to both wickedness and higher consciousness, and that duality. Look at this, yeah? That higher consciousness revealing itself. Choice between ego and humility. Beginnings, the beginning of something new, right? Also poverty, but also leadership. Now, the rune that would be associated with this is Manaz, which kind of looks like Iwaz with a couple of extra lines. So it's like an M with 2 extra lines. And Manaz is associated with things like destiny, self-knowledge, spiritual power, intelligence, foresight, and creativity, divine order and awareness. Do you see how Manaz really does pair up nicely with this Judgment image? Okay, so where are we now? We've gone through the sun. We've been called by Mercury, perhaps, into our awakened state from matter. And then this is where you might start freaking out. We're going to move right into the Fool. Right? And are you still thinking, wait, no. Well, yes. Let's walk through this, yeah? Fool is associated with the Hebrew letter Shin now. Shin, which kind of looks like a W. And in the Sepher Yetzirah, that means it is associated with the element of fire. And you might be thinking, the Fool and fire? What? Okay, yeah, let's go with this. So what is fire? Fire is a powerful, dynamic symbol associated with divinity, transformation, and intense emotion. But what kind of fool are we talking about, fool? It's divine presence, theophany, God's divine presence and holiness. It is the burning bush, the fire that does not consume, the burning bush that Moses encountered. Right? It's also the pillar of fire that guided the Israelites through the desert and the fire on Mount Sinai. It's purification and judgment, right? Because fire can consume impurities. Fire is also divine judgment and the destruction of evil. So it's the guide and the destroyer of the bad. It's passion and strength. It is our inner strength, our passion, and the intense, sometimes consuming nature of God's word or God's anger. Anger is possible here too. Maybe when the card is reversed. It's transformation. The process of change and becoming. The most refined and spiritual of physical elements is fire, right? And it's the process of change and becoming the new. Are you starting to feel maybe, okay, that might start feeling a little fool-like, yeah? Now, Shin is the Hebrew letter for tooth or teeth and fire. It's steadfastness in faith. It is being careful with your actions. It's strength. It's the changeless one. Keep these in mind, changeless one, right? Or the change for the good. The number 300 is divine power. It is also associated with transformation, judgment, and again, change. Now, if we look at the rune, it would be Laguz, which kind of looks like half of an arrow pointing up. And Laguz is the rune for lake, water. Interesting. Water is the rune. Fire is the Hebrew letter. Renewal and regeneration. It's dreams, fantasies, the unknown or the hidden. But on the other hand, it's also achieving goals. Okay, now hold on to those ideas. Maybe if you've jotted them down, that's great. Because now let's also look at the world. This is the world. The world is now associated with the Hebrew letter Tav, the final Hebrew letter. And I think that is appropriate for the world. Tav is associated with, in the system I'm working with, the moon. Now the moon is placed in Yesod, which is foundation. Yes, the foundation, before final manifestation, the foundation of the tree of life. It's the final step before form. Kind of works for the world for me. Now, for the Jewish people, the moon is the divine principle. The feminine principle. It's the divine presence, the Shekinah, for the world, which kind of works for this image, right? And renewal. The Shekinah, divine feminine presence. The immanent, the indwelling, and often feminized presence of God in the world. In the world. It's Shekinah contained enmeshed in material is the devil, maybe. Shekinah released is the world. Or Shekinah emergent, shall we say, is the world. I think Shekinah has the agency to emerge on her own, right? And it reflects the light of the divine, the moon, yes? Also change and emotional sensitivity. Now, Tov is the Hebrew letter of the cross. Although it doesn't really look like a cross, it is the cross. A mark, an X. X marks the spot. A sign. Humankind's ultimate destination is Tov, the world. It's completion before beginning again. That makes sense for the world for me. It's truth. It is the covenant between humankind and God, and its fulfillment. Now, if we were to look at the rune that would be associated, it is Ingwaz, which kind of looks like a little diamond, like on a playing card. And it is, guess what? The earth. Ingwaz is the rune for the earth, the world. And it's also the god Ing. It is also fertility and retreat and growth. Okay, now, how are you feeling about the fool being before the world now? Let's talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so think of the fool as the unnumbered soul passing into completion. Now, before the Golden Dawn assigned 0 to the fool, it was often read as, again, the unnumbered card, the outside the sequence. It's something that could be wandering through the entire series, right? So it doesn't have to be at the beginning. It doesn't have to be at the end. It could be anywhere. In the older model, the fool is not the beginning of the journey. It is the transcendent card, right? And yet, we have the final 3 cards of the Tarot as a metaphysical triad. You have the sun, judgment, and the world. The sun, illumination. Judgment, resurrection, awakening. The world, cosmic completion, union, entry into an elemental fullness. And yet it's also a portal, which we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah? The fool is the moment of liberation before entering totality. So we've got the judgment, the waking up, and it is the fool who emerges from judgment, the judgment card, before entering into total unity with the world. Does that make sense? That may be why early esotericists placed the fool between judgment and the world, because they saw him as the liberated soul, stepping out of form just before entering cosmic unity. Yeah? We also have Shin, fire of the fool. The fool takes Shin. Okay, I'll have to stop. Sorry, there was a knock at the door. So, here we are. Shin, fire, the fool. So the fool takes Shin, and what happens? The fool embodies things like elemental fire, spirit, the animating spark, the creative force that precedes and reemerges from form. It precedes and reemerges from form. Pure potential. The ineffable, imaginal, and primal impulse. Sounds very fool-like, doesn't it? The breath that moves through creation. So this makes the fool the spark before the world becomes structured. And since Shin is the last of the 3 mother letters, it is the fiery, expansive, uncontained mother. Perfect for the fool's risk, freedom, and transcendence qualities. Yeah? In a Sepher Yetzirah based system, Shin is the disruptive and creative fire. The Fool is untethered spiritual spark. Does that make sense? Do you see the harmony there? Now, when we say Tav is the moon, is the world, what happens there? What does that mean? What does Tav mean? It is completion. It is sealing. It's enclosure. It's the mark, like hitting the mark, yes? It's the final boundary of a sequence. It's the fullness of a cycle. And it's the gate that closes and opens worlds. World, right? Now consider the world card. It's the circle or a mandala. It's completion. It's harmony. It's enclosure. It's a cycle ending. It's the cosmos as a whole. It's the seal and the journey, yes? It's a boundary and a doorway. The world as Tav is almost perfect, I think. So it makes sense for me that the world is not just the end of the journey, but the completion mark, a seal placed upon the cycle that has passed of the trumps, but also the gateway to the new cycle. Does that make sense? And so with this sequence of cards, what do we have? We've got the spark of the divine enmeshed in matter. And then there's a rupture, a disruption, a breaking apart, perhaps, an enlightenment, a calling forth. And then there is the Venusian exposure of the divine feminine there in her fullness, right? And then that fullness enters into the moon and passes through the sun, and then is called forth by Mercury in judgment, not in judgment, but in the judgment card. And then what is liberated is the Fool, as the Fool enters the fullness of unity and walks through the liminal portal of the world, maybe perhaps back into another cycle with the Magician. Does that make sense to you? Can you feel that progress? If you do, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, let me know in the comments below. I would really love to hear from you. Has any of this resonated with you? What calls you? What speaks to you? What resistance are you still feeling? I'd love to hear from you. And friends, the next video will be the beginning of the Minor Arcana. And we will most certainly start with the Suit of Wands. And we'll look at the numbers 1, with the ace through 10. And there's zodiacal associations. In the first video, I will tell you what I am doing and how it is different from the Golden Dawn's associations and other people's associations. And then we'll go through the cards. Okay, friends? Well, this is the end of this video, and this is the end of the series on the Major Arcana. Thank you for joining me. I hope this has been meaningful for you. I know it is meaningful for me to talk this through with you. It is helpful for me. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.